I wanted to ask you, I'm talking about Matt Mitrione before the break. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. PFPsports.com, by the way.
We're here every week. You see my championship belt on. The reason I'm wearing this...
Well, why don't you tell the nice people out there
I
what
got
you're wearing
my
that.
championship belt on because last week you sat on this show at that damn chair right there, and you said, we're going through our picks, and I'm going to have one more better than Darren because that's what I do. And for the record, you were 500, which not very good. 500 is not very good. 3-3. I was 5-1, so that's why I've got the belt on right now.
Yeah, I think Paul Sass
lost.
Could have gone his way.
He lost.
Mayoshik, another one, man. He lost.
You're right. I got that one wrong, too. So
I'm just saying. Yeah. It could be we're a banana peel away from being even, my friend. So
right.
So
3-3.
We'll see what happens next week.
So anyway, you asked me before we went to break. You asked me about Matt Mitrione, and I think
is he getting some static? Is it unfair that this guy's getting the grief he is? Is there any merit to what he's saying?
I'm telling you something right now. The much money as these guys are making, it's not. Oh man, I got to take a fight because I need money. That is not the situation anymore, and that used to be the situation. They need to start offering these guys. I mean, who am I to sit here and say they need more incentives? But you got to give a guy incentive to take a fight on short notice, especially when losing a fight does so much for your career. I mean, these guys need more incentives. So if Dana's got to break into the bank a little bit more, or give these guys some sort of a reinsurance, I don't know. It's going to start. You mark my words, it's going to happening a lot more.
It's already, in my opinion, it's already happening too much. Parlays into my second question, but before that, you raise an interesting point. I mean, should it be something financially that they break them off, or do you think a lot of these guys are really worried about taking a loss? I mean, there's very few Dan Hardys out there that can take 4 straight losses and still have a job in the UFC.
You know what? And that's exactly it. And I don't know. I'm sure it's such a secret, like the money that these guys are making and what they are not getting. I mean, we got their basic purse, which I have to report to the commission, but they're making more money than that. But maybe they are offering them more money to take these fights, but it's obviously not enough because you look at certain fighters, and I think that they're at the point where a loss almost hurts them more than, let's say, $100,000 would help them.
That's what I'm saying. $100,000, but if that's my last fight in the UFC, I'm never going to make that kind of jack again.
Exactly.
I mean, you got to wonder what's going through some of these people's heads. So I wonder if maybe there's a way to get a guy like Matt Mitrione, hey, we'll break you off a little something extra here, and if it doesn't go your way, it's kind of under the rug. It's off the books, so to speak. I mean, something's got to happen. And my second question is, it's like, you're saying this is going to happen more and more. It's like you see it happening plenty enough already. I mean, and my question is, hey, how are we going to have cards? I mean, if fighters are deciding who they're going to fight and who they're not going to fight, you throw the injury bug on top of that. I mean, at what point does it become detrimental to the UFC? I mean, they're already charging a grip for tickets, right?
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point, man. Something's got to change about that, and I don't know what it is. I mean, I want to say just throw some money at it. That'll solve it, but I don't.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
But then again, we're not making the kind of beans these guys are making.
I'm going to say I'm a little deficient in the cash department these days.
But you know what? Whether it's a monetary bonus, whether it's once you turn professional, that loss doesn't go off your record.
Yeah.
I don't care if the UFC says, okay, well, we'll go ahead and turn our cheek.
I don't care how many local promoters say you can make it to the UFC with 25 losses. I don't care what they say.
I've heard someone say that too. But and so these wins or losses are so crucial that
they are.
They're going to have to step up the payouts, I think.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And I start worrying that there's going to be an epidemic because we're already dealing with the tough ratings.
Like the swine flu? What do you mean an epidemic?
Well, just an epidemic. That might be a little strong of a word, but
a couple of weeks ago you dropped the tragic line on us.
We
are talking about
it is an epidemic.
Here.
Think about
we're
it, man.
We're talking about a sport, for Christ's sake. We're not an epidemic.
It's an epidemic. Well, if you're a fan, it's epidemic.
Okay.
What I'm getting at is the fact that you have so many cards. So that's already going to hurt some of your ratings, some of the interest.
Yes.
So they're already dealing with that. You're dealing with injuries. You're dealing with fighters wanting to protect their brand and not want to fight this guy. I mean, at what point do the UFC start? Is it possible that they lose fans? Do they not command as much money for tickets? Are they short in attendance? I mean, something's going to give here, in my opinion, over the next couple years. Because as a guy that's paid for many, many UFCs, I'm sitting here thinking, you know what? If there's a card where the co-main event isn't that strong, or I don't feel like on paper, and hey, we know how they all go on paper. Sometimes it don't work out like that. But if everything goes according to plan, I'm going to spend some jack if I feel they have a little room, a buffer zone should something bad happen,
right.
But on those cards where, maybe the whole card's built around a singular main event, I mean, it's just so hard to justify paying the kind of jack for those tickets.
Yeah,
I can't be the only one thinking that.
You know what? No, you're not. You're absolutely right. But to go back to Daniel Cormier, this is a little bit of a different situation, too, because we're asking a UFC fighter to go over to Strikeforce.
And he says that's not the problem. But you're right.
Who says that's not the problem?
Matt Mitrione says that's not the problem. I don't care where the fight takes place. He's saying Yeah, he's saying that coming off a loss, he didn't look great. I think it was Czech Congo we fought last. Yeah. He didn't look great against Congo, and you're talking about a guy who's got cardio clearly to go 5 rounds. His striking, his hands are improving leaps and bounds, and then let's not forget about the fact the guy's an Olympic wrestler. You know, I mean,
and the best in the world according to my co-host Nick Eustace.
Oh, he's right up there. Trust me, he is right up there. You mark my words. But I understand where Mitrione's coming from.
Move over, Junior. Here he comes, baby.
Hey, man, we could be having a very different conversation 10 months from now.
We could.
I don't know. You know, I understand where Mitrione's coming from, but again, it all kind of comes back to the fact, you know, hey, are you getting broken up with something a little extra? Are you getting a little guarantee that you're not going to get the cut call from Joe Silva on Monday?
Yeah, I just think, you know, Danny's used to having guys like, you know, the old school Randys and Chucks that'll, you know, quote unquote fight anybody anywhere, which, you know, that line is so overhyped, but, you know, it's a different, these guys are truly athletes. I mean, they're picking MMA over other professional sports that they're good enough to go into. You know, let's be honest. If John Jones wanted to focus on becoming a, you know, he's an athletic freak. You know,
sure.
GSP, athletic freak. These guys could have went on and played other sports.
Right. No, it's funny.
It's a different time now. It's a different time.
It is. I mean, that'd be like Lakers saying, you know what, man, the Suns, man, I don't want to play them.
Yeah.
You know, let me play the Kings. You know, I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you say the same thing in any other professional sport. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But you know, in all fairness, other professional sports, they're not getting punched in the head for a living, and
you know there's a lot to be learned here from, like, I look at the college football team, Savannah State, that went on and played Florida State and Oklahoma State, or somebody that lost by like 80.
Right.
You know, they took their licks, but they got their paycheck.
They took their licks, and they actually.
That's what the UFC. Maybe the UFC needs to hire a couple Savannah States.
You
know, they'll just kind of, maybe Chris Lieben will designate Forrest Griffin, you know, who's a millionaire, so he doesn't need the money.
Right.
But just a couple guys that.
Yeah, you need to find somebody broke.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure to make that work. But I see it working.
Yeah.
Rampage Jackson, you throw that name around, everybody, where's he going? Apparently he's not fighting again. I don't know what's going on with Rampage, but they're talking about Mitrione. I guess he's used the name Rampage come out of his mouth, and I start thinking to myself, you know, Mitrione's a heavyweight, but then you look at Rampage when he's not fighting, that guy's like over 230. I mean, he does not look like a guy that's 205. I mean, anybody that's ever seen him out there when he's not training. So
well, none of these guys ever walk around at 205. Let's be honest here. A lot of these guys cut a lot of weight.
It's crazy the amount of weight they cut for sure. I don't know, man. It's just a really hard.
To me, it's Matt Mitrione calling out a name. You know, everybody knows who Rampage is.
It's a name, and other than knockout power, if you could stay away from that, you know, is he a threat to put you away in any other way?
I would say at this point in the career, very highly unlikely.
It'd be nice to, you know, get a name like that under your belt, send him packing, and you move on up the ladder.
Right.
Makes perfect sense. Stefan Struve, he's talking about possibly fighting Fabricio Werdum next. Is this a great matchup for both guys at this point in time?
You know, Stefan Struve gets on there, and then he starts calling out his next up. But when did this become the fighter's choice? I mean, we talk about that every week.
It's amazing.
If I was Dan, I'd be like, okay, great. You don't make the choices around here, son.
By the way.
Hey, sweetheart, we got professionals that do that.
Yeah, we pay people.
For that, and for that reason only, these two guys should not fight right now. For that reason only.
Just for that reason. Just to send everybody a message.
Just because we're not talking like contender status here, or he's the next guy. If I beat him, I'll get a title.
Right.
This is just, I'm going to call out another good heavyweight. And no, this cannot happen.
Stefan Struve, a top 10 fighter.
He is now.
Number 9,
he is
10. He's flirting around there. He's at the
he
end,
is now, after his performance.
He broke in.
You know, I'm always so hesitant to throw anything on Struve, you know, but he's proven me wrong.
It's LeVar Johnson, and he looked great his last 2 fights. I would argue that he's probably broke into the top 10.
Yeah.
I always love talking MMA math here because, who's guard, who did. It's actually an intriguing matchup because you talk about a guy who's 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
He's got a pretty crazy guard with those legs, but then you look at the guard of Werdum, you know, you got to wonder, does it take Stefan Struve out of his plan? Is he less likely?
You're such a jiu-jitsu mark, dude.
I love it.
It's like talking about who's got a better straight jab.
Well, you know what? I'm sure you can find a couple guys out there who'd love to talk about that too.
You know what? I think, in all honesty, I think that would be a great fight if it were to happen, because the jiu-jitsu games would kind of cancel each other out.
Right.
And Stefan Struve, his transitions for a dude that's 7 feet tall, they're disgusting.
It's crazy. I mean, like it's very hard to deal with that length.
But I mean, to talk about who has the better guard, or I'd have to throw that over to you. You're the jiu-jitsu guy.
I'm saying I would love to see it. You know, I'm just. It's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, no, absolutely interesting matchup, but it shouldn't happen, and especially not now.
Especially not. The judge has spoken.
And since I anointed myself the new matchmaker earlier in the show, I'm going to go ahead and not let that happen. I already set up his next opponent.
And it's not him.
No, it's Bigfoot.
Speaking of guys that are talking about who they're going to fight, now you got guys saying, okay, I'm not going to fight a teammate. I'm not. It's always now that's been a problem in MMA for years now. I'm not going to fight in these camps. Greg Jackson. I mean, anytime a camp gets notoriety, you notice it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and now there's less and less and less matchups. Here's another it's the same as the injury bug. We were just talking about it. People are talking about Daniel Cormier potentially cutting down to 205. I don't argue that he probably couldn't make it with some work. He's a big guy, but he looks like there's some room there to get down probably. But the reason being that he doesn't want to fight should Cain Velasquez win the belt. That's a big if. Junior Dos Santos is no joke. But should that be the case, he's saying, hey man, I'm gonna drop out of the heavyweight division if I come over to the UFC.
Yeah, I can't blame these guys. The teammates,
it makes sense. I understand.
In the off season of this show, I'm a team. Yeah, I get it. I mean, the teammate bond is. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I don't even know how to explain it, but
you know what? It's more than just a bond too, because like if you're rolling around with anybody, like some guy's tendencies. He's looking for this.
But that's not even the bulk of it. The problem is I'm training my ass off next to this guy for 2 sessions of 3 hours a day or 3 sessions for 3 hours a day. I mean, this guy is like a brother to me. I'm not going to go out there and fight him.
Right, but then what do you do when you get like a team like American Top Team, Greg Jackson? I mean, they got a camp like you got 10 guys on their roster in the UFC.
Yeah, well, then you worry about that problem. You cross that bridge when you get there.
Absolutely. It's funny because everybody's talking about Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos. That's a big matchup coming up at the end of the year. I mean, I can't wait to see it, but it's kind of weird. Can you remember a single fight being this significant in that it could potentially, if Cain Velasquez wins and Cormier drops to 205, I mean, you're talking about a single fight potentially affecting 2 different divisions. I mean, that's a pretty big significant fight, don't you think?
No, yeah, and a great fight. So, and a fight that Cain Velasquez could easily win. So, if that happens, Daniel Cormier will be a force at 205. I mean, he's already the best in the world according to you. So, what does he got to worry about?
Very little, man. I can't wait to see 205, whatever, man. So. I don't know. I don't think MMA is a team sport. It is somewhat in that you train with these guys, but here's yet another set of circumstances again where I'm not going to fight this guy. I'm gonna it just doesn't make any sense. So Darren, where can we find you, bud?
You can find me on Twitter. That's all we got. Next week, UFC 153 recap, of course. Nick will tell you how Stefan Bonner will win that fight. And you can follow me on Twitter at Darren PFP Sports.
At Nick PFP Sports. Check out our Facebook page, Pound for Pound.